What you got? What you got?
This is State of Emergency.
The nightlife, the night circle of sanity, radio show. The nightlife, the night circle of sanity, radio show. The nightlife, the night circle of sanity, radio.
You want answers? You want answers? You want answers? You want answers?
I want the truth, want the truth, want the truth.
You can't handle the truth. Feel the truth. Feel the truth. Feel the truth.
The nightlife, the night circle of sanity, radio show.
Good evening, fellow students. Look, I'm getting ready to tell y'all the truth. I'm hungry. Had a rough day. So all of you all who got on the air when this show started, you see that I'm eating a bag of potato chips because my producer, the man with the plan, the man he's clearly the best DJ in this building right now in this studio for the next hour.
Or until a bag of chips are gone.
Until these chips are gone. He never has food here for the host of shows. So tonight he had snacks and I'm hungry. So I didn't know we were on air. So I just grabbed a bag of chips. I'm sitting here munching on them. So, but I owe him for this. So I'm going to get him for that. But anyway, welcome.
Feel free to always bring some brisket and I can eat some brisket on there.
See, we're gonna don't make me bring up the pizza incident. I ain't gonna talk about the pizza incident.
It was your fault. And I didn't bring the pizza.
Or some of you all don't know this. He was eating some food one night and said, "Oh yeah, are you hungry? Would you like a potato chip? I'm sorry, would you like a French fry? Would you like a French fry? Like a French fry? No, man, I'm good. You know, that's fine. I appreciate you. Yeah. So
it was a figure of speech.
Right, because you really didn't want me to have that French fry.
Nah, you could have got whatever you wanted.
Yeah, whatever, man, whatever. Listen, everybody. Welcome to the Nightlife for Circle of Sanity for October 30th, 2024. I'll just say real quick that today would have been my grandmother's 102nd birthday. Thank you. Those who know me and know her know that was my entire world. And I lost her in 2017. And my world's been different ever since. But every October 30th is a holiday for me to commemorate her and the great woman that she was, Rosina Allen. Just a wonderful person. So I'm celebrating her tonight and a lot to talk about. So let me tell you a story. I have like a million stories of my grandmother, but this one was probably the last story she and I shared, our last moment. So 2016 general election season. And towards the end, she wasn't always cognizant of what was going on. But she knew the election was important and she knew she wanted to vote. So I took her to vote that day. She got her ballot in. And then we were watching, prior to that, we were watching the presidential debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald J. Trump. And she had a caregiver that ended her shift at 8 p.m. and did not want to stay and watch the debate with my grandmother. My, at the time, 95-year-old grandmother did not want to sit there and watch the debate with her. So I said, I'll watch the debate with you. You know, we're fine. So sat there and watched the debate. And it was the debate where Trump kept stalking Hillary on stage, kept walking behind her, and was very nasty towards her. So when the debate was over, I looked at her across the table and I said, well, lady, what do you think? And she looked at me and she said, well, I think somebody needs to kick him in his ass.
Wow.
And if you knew my grandmother, that was sort of characters. Like I had, just like Richard Pryor had two grandmothers. I had a milk and cookies grandmother and I had a beer and wine grandmother. And this was my milk and cookies grandmother. And when she said that, all I could do was fall out laughing, man. And she clearly was right. She clearly was right. And I know if she were here and watched that debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, she would have said, well, he got what he deserved because she kicked his ass. So, in honor of her, this show is in honor of her tonight.
Happy birthday, Grandma.
And let me be clear, Rock. Everybody who knew my grandmother called her Roro. You didn't call her Miss Allen. You didn't call her Mrs. Allen. You didn't call her Grandma. You called her Roro. If she knew you, if you knew her, she was Roro. She told all my friends. She wasn't Miss Roro. She was Roro. So if I cared about you, if anyone in my family cared about you, and you came in her house or you met her, she told you, you can call me Roro. So this is Roro's 102nd birthday. Great lady, great lady. So look, I'm running a little late. I'm running a little late tonight getting here because I lost another cousin last week. Dirk Rawlings, we called him Tater Man, passed away in his sleep the other day, and the family had the viewing for him tonight, so I was there. And Tater was younger than me by maybe 6 years, I think. So it's hard. It's hard when you see someone younger than you pass away, and then you realize how old you are yourself. And the reality of what life is the reality of what life is. There's nobody getting out of this shit alive. And how you spend your life is important, because what you do between the day you were born and the day you transition defines who you are. And I look at these 62, almost 63 years I've been on this planet. I'm always asking myself, can I do more? And I want to do more. And one of the things I'm going to do this holiday season is I want to get some people together, some good people, and have them join me. I'm going to go downtown. I'm going to feed some homeless people. And if you want to be a part of that, you can call into this station, number 443-267-6558. You can text me, you can find me, you can message Nitelifer online on Facebook. You can text me or message me, Yale Beverly, online, and let's make it happen. Let's get a group of people and let's go out and make a difference for this holiday season.
Where are you going? Are you going to the Shock Tower? Or are you going to the shelter on Gate Street? Where are you going?
To be determined. We'll make that determination in November. We'll find a place and we'll make that place. We'll do it. I'm not going to set up a place and have people come in. I just want to go out and hand out food to people.
Okay.
So Rock, I know if you want to be involved, I know you'll want to be involved. I know you'll come out and help do that. Maybe we can get some helpers, like some of Santa's helpers, if we know any little people, like children.
Early,
like children, little people to help, so they can learn about taking care of their fellow man. Little kids, little people.
Okay.
Or anyone under 4'11". I'm not mentioning any names or anything. I'm just saying, we gotta each one reach one. So anyway, let's get that out the way. So this is look, this is it. This is it. This is October 30th. This is the last show before the general election for President of the United States and certain members of the Senate and Congress. We got no more excuses. We got no more time. It is what it is. This is it. This is your chance. If you have not made a plan to vote, if you're not early voting, if you're waiting for some shoe to drop before you make a decision, I don't know what more you need to see. The truth is there. It's for everyone to see. You are looking at two choices. You're looking at a woman with an impeccable legislative and political record, and you're looking at a man who has been convicted of 34 felonies, been found liable for assault, sexual assault, has lost case after case in this falsehood of a narrative of the 2020 election being stolen from him, who paid a porn star not to tell that he had sex with her. Like, if none of those things matter to you, fine. If the issues that bother you, you don't think are being addressed by either candidate, I understand that, but you should still carry your behind out to vote, especially if you're a Black person in America. Whether you're a Black man, Black woman, you need to take your behind out and vote. If you have any connection to anybody in your life who lived life before you came on this planet, whether that be your mother, grandmother, father, grandfather, great-grandfather. I had my great-grandfather till I was 21 years old. My great-grandmother, only great-grandmother I really knew, she passed away after she turned 101 years old. I know people, and as I just said, my grandmother would have been 102 today, but she passed away at 95. I'm connected to people who did not have a right to vote, who put their lives on the line just to go to a polls. If you know anybody in that same circumstance, your ass needs to go vote, because you wouldn't have the right to vote if not for their sacrifice. And I hear and see a lot on social media and in the news now about certain people not wanting to vote for a woman, certain people not wanting to vote for a Black woman, certain people who don't think that the Democratic Party has done enough for them personally, so they're not going to vote. I'll tell you, like I told people in 2016 who refused to vote for Hillary Clinton because they wanted Bernie Sanders, so they voted for the Green Party or the Purple Party or whatever fringe that was out there at the time. You make that vote from a conscious mindset of your vote is not going to make a difference. You can call the protest vote whatever, but reality is, when you go out there and do a vote like that, make a vote like that, you're throwing your vote away. Because this country is a two-party system. It's been a two-party system forever. I don't know that it will always be a two-party system, but right now it's a two-party system. And until those two parties are no longer in power, your vote is only going to count for one party or the other. And you've got a party that has come out and said women's rights don't matter. People of color's rights only matter to them when they're trying at the last minute to seduce you to give them your vote. There was a rally in Madison Square Garden the other day for Donald Trump, and he had speaker after speaker talk about how evil people of color are. They had person after person come up and say Kamala Harris was a prostitute. One man came out and said her pimp handlers. Rock, who do pimps handle?
Garden tools.
Exactly. Another speaker, comedian, came out and said the most like vile thing I've heard said by someone in public when they knew the world was listening that I've heard in a long time. This man said, pointed to a black man in the audience and said, "Oh yeah, I'm glad he's here. He and I were just carving watermelons before this rally."
The comedian.
The comedian, like what? When is so? Roll you back a little bit. I'm 62. I grew up in an era when people like Don Rickles and other comedians, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, like people made fun of each other and they made fun of somebody's race to their face for comic effect. Basically, they created the dozens. But none of it was ever said in a mean, hateful, spiteful way to make you think, well, this Don Rickles was the worst, funniest person in the world, but everything he said to a person out of love and comedy. He disparaged everybody. He made a living out of picking on everybody. Jews, Italians, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, but it was all done in comedy. And the person he was talking about was in on the joke or the butt of the joke because it was funny. It was a tete-a-tete. It was a back and forth. I'm 5'6". He'd have made fun of me about my height and me being black, but he wouldn't have said all black people, blah, blah, blah. All black people, da, da, da. This comedian from the rally said there's a floating island of garbage in the ocean. I think it's called Puerto Rico. He said immigrants will come to this country and they make a lot of babies because they don't know how to pull out. So you know they're not going to pull out of this country. But this is the party that wants your vote. If you're black, when I see blacks for Trump, I see idiots and what Sambo. Like you see, it's because it's the most debasing form of talking about someone that you could think of. You had the senator from South Carolina, Scott, on stage with Donald Trump and looked at him and said, "I love you." Like, I thought I was watching a remake of Django Unchained. This dude was doing his best Steven impression. Like, he was serious about this shit, but he's not serious about it because he's only trying to appease the great one, the one they believe is their salvation, their savior, their great leader, their dear leader. Because when Donald Trump loses this election next week, he's finally going to be pushed off the stage. He won't be able to run anymore because he's already proven he's too old to be running now. He will have proven that for the last 4 election cycles, 2016, he didn't win the popular vote. 2020, he didn't win the popular vote. 2022, he lost votes in the House and the Senate. If he loses this next week, it'll be 4 election cycles that he's lost from a popular vote standpoint. They don't see him as a loser because he refuses to say he's a loser, but he's a loser. But they think they'll appease him and he'll do something great for them financially or from a political standpoint once he gets in office. And if he doesn't get back in office, they have sold their souls for a bag of beans. They'll say, "Oh, yeah, well, Donald Trump pardoned X amount of black people who were in prison." He don't care about them people. People put letters and documents in front of him to make him sign it, and he just signed it because he thought it was politically expedient or he couldn't be bothered to actually read the details. he's not doing anything for Black people. This is a man whose family business in the 70s, I think it was 1973, was convicted by the federal government of housing discrimination. He and his father ran the rattiest, junkiest housing projects, apartment complexes in Jamaica, New York. And they wouldn't rent to Black people. They had so much disdain for Black people that they would not rent these rat infested, falling down apartments to Black people. His Donald Trump's niece wrote her first book, talked about how bad the apartments were, and her father and her mother were forced to live in this apartment because Donald Trump's father didn't want to give him his due as part of the Trump family, because this man actually wanted to work for a living. He was an airline pilot. He also had a drinking problem, which you can say whatever you want to say about it. He was a functional alcoholic, or high functioning alcoholic, but they didn't see him as being worthy of living in anything but these apartments. And Donald Trump's niece talks in detail about how bad the apartment was, how the mold was on the walls, how the air conditioning didn't work in the summertime and leaked in the colder months, and they had to have tape on the windows to keep the cold air from coming in. But these apartments clearly were not even good enough for Black people, for Donald Trump's father and him. So they were sued federally and lost and had to pay restitution. This is a man who took out a full-page ad in the New York newspaper condemning or calling for the death penalty for the 5 young men who were falsely accused and convicted of raping a woman in Central Park, who Donald Trump said in a debate that she died when she did not. And then the truth came out. DNA evidence proved that she was raped and attacked by a serial rapist who had been locked up for raping someone else. And those 5 young men were exonerated. The city of New York and the state of New York had to pay them restitution for putting them through what they went through, for the amount of years they spent in prison.
Do you recall how long it was?
I don't remember how long it was. I want to say 15 years. That's the number that comes to mind. I could be wrong. However, they were exonerated, and Donald Trump still put out an ad that said he still believes they're guilty. You are talking about a person who said in his initial announcement to run for president, as he came down the escalator at Trump Tower, Mexico is sending their worst people, the rapists, the murderers, and they still play that trope. They still play on that mindset that all immigrants that are coming from the south of the border of the United States are bad people, and they want to put all the immigrants out. So let's talk about that. We've talked about it before. Let's talk about it for a second. Do you think if you're a Hispanic person living in this country and you're walking through an area that some whatever force they have to do this, if you're Puerto Rican, if you're Salvadorian, if you're Cuban, they're going to look at you and go, "Oh, you're from Mexico. You got to go." You think they're going to ask you, "Hey, are you Puerto Rican? Are you from the Dominican Republic?" No, they're going to look at you, see that you're Hispanic, and you got to go. They're going to throw you out or try to throw you out, try to deport you. He's saying, and his people at this rally said, all of them got to go. All of the immigrants got to go. Now, this is the brown skin immigrants, not people like Melania, who's from Eastern Europe, not people who look like who've immigrated to this country. And again, real quick, Melania Trump, came to this country on a work visa as a model who did soft porn. She married Donald Trump, and she's here as a citizen because she married an American citizen.
What is soft porn? Isn't porn? What is soft porn?
So there's hardcore porn.
Penetration.
Hardcore porn is more than penetration. Hardcore porn is some just like wild, like crazy, wild stuff. People with animals or gang bangs and stuff like that. That's hardcore porn. Then there's porn, which is like there's penetration, there's actual sexual acts. And then there's soft porn, which is just like partial nudity, people making out, but you don't see any real sexual acts. You see people dressed a certain way or not dressed a certain way. That's called soft porn.
Is she a porn?
So I have been told, because I wouldn't really know.
But is she considered a porn star?
No, she's considered a model now because she's Donald Trump's wife. There are pictures of this woman floating around out there that cannot in any way, shape, or form be considered modest. And Trump supporters think they're fine. I'm going to take you back to 2008 when First Lady Michelle Obama wore a sleeveless shirt and they lost their damn minds because her arms were out. Oh my God. This is just.
She had on a sheath, like a sheath dress?
Michelle?
Yes.
I can't say yes or no because I don't know what a sheath dress is because I'm 100% stupid male. I wouldn't know a sheath dress from a sheath top. I don't know these things. I can't. For those who don't know, sitting off to my left is the wonderful Glenda Curtis, who has her show before the show. I'm gonna bring her over here a minute because we're gonna talk about some things. But she's sitting over there now. She's chiming in and she's offering commentary and I know she's picking with me a little bit because she's just a great person. She's a fun person and very intelligent and knows her stuff. But I need her to join in on the show about the other subject I'm going to talk about after the election. But back to the election. She can chime in now. She can slide over now. I'm not trying to keep her away from my audience. But back to the election. This is the last show before the election. The next time you see me on air, we will talk about what the results are, will be, or coming. You know, next Tuesday is it. Take your souls to the polls. We're going to be a country of extreme ridiculousness or a country that's getting back to normalcy. And normalcy might not work for everybody. I get it. We are in a situation now where people that I always thought were the ultimate evil, Dick Cheney, have come out against Donald Trump. When you have someone like Dick Cheney saying that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy that must be defeated, and he's a Republican, and this man is supposedly the leader of the Republican Party, Donald Trump, that is, then you have to say, wait a minute. If Cheney thinks he's bad, then he must be really bad. I got into a discussion, a tete-a-tete, a back and forth, whatever you want to call it, with a high school friend of mine on Facebook. We were going back and forth on her regurgitating the talking points that Fox News and One America News Network put out and Sinclair Network puts out. And one of the things she said was Kamala Harris and her group, nobody wants to support them. And I said, there are over 200 former members of the Bush and Reagan administrations who've come out against Donald Trump. And Trump's own administration have come out against him and said he's got to go. And she said, "Oh, that doesn't matter." I said, "Dick Cheney, you were probably, and I know for a fact you're one of those people that were all on board for George W. Bush in the second Iraqi war, and you loved Dick Cheney then. Now Dick Cheney's voice doesn't matter." And she said, "Oh, Dick Cheney's a warmonger." Yeah, he is, but you weren't concerned about him being a warmonger when there was a agenda to send American troops over to fight a war so we could steal another country's oil. But now he's a warmonger. He's not credible. I mean, as I've talked about last week on this show with Rock and I talked about their supporters, Trump supporters, the MAGA world. It doesn't matter to them the truth as everyone else sees it but them. They don't care anymore. They don't care that he has 34 convictions for federal convictions for criminal intent. It doesn't matter that he molested a woman and was found liable for found culpable for doing it, and then liable for saying that he didn't do it and calling her whatever he called her. Doesn't matter to them.
Inciting
a right and an insurrection against the United States government.
right.
Let me put it this way. And Glenda, you help me with this. And Rocky over there, let's talk about this real quick. You realize you need security at your house. You need security to watch you, to take care of you, to look over you. So you hire this person to be your security. And after 4 years of being your security, they get a bunch of their friends together and say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to rob Glenda's house. Not only are we going to rob Glenda's house, we're going to make Glenda do what we want Glenda to do. And we're going to tear up the house. We're going to try to light fires on the house. We're going to build a gallows in your front yard to say, hang Glenda's grandson.
Mm.
Then 4 years later, after you got rid of that person clearly because they didn't do what you hired them to do and did more than you expected them to do, 4 years later, they can come back to you and say, hey, don't you want to hire me again? Excuse my French, but why in the hell would you want to do that? This man was hired by people of the United States, not by majority, but by working the Electoral College to defend and protect the people of the United States, the citizens of the United States, and the Constitution. And he broke all of those in one day, not to mention all the shit he did 4 years prior, but in one day. But you want to hire him again. And you know why you want to hire him again? Because you think the Constitution that we have all been indoctrinated to be saying the Pledge of Allegiance to since we first carried our little footsteps into school, you think it's wrong because now your piece of the American pie is not what you expected it to be. Because you're white, you're supposed to get everything that you want. And anybody who's not white gets more to you. So you're upset about it. And that's what it comes down to. That's the crux of it.
And for me, I have a problem with him even being a candidate for the United States president. Given all that you've mentioned, given who he has displayed himself to be, given his unabashed language against people, against all kinds of groups, people with disabilities, women, Black people, you name it, he has made a disparaging comment about. And the problem isn't even him. It is the people that support him
and enable him.
Right. Enable and align with him.
That's right.
And so that's dangerous. We're living in a dangerous America that we would allow somebody to climb the ranks to be the leader of this so-called free world.
Free country, free world, right? Say that. Whoever's the president is the leader of the free world,
Right.
the most powerful person on the planet.
And for as much as people scrape and strive to get here, we are also a laughing stock around the world. That
Yeah.
we would have
This fool. It's a fool. He's a fool who calls other people dumb. This is a man who didn't know Frederick Douglass was dead. This is a man who didn't know the reason for the Civil War. This is a man who will try to tell you that the way to solve America's economic problems is to raise tariffs against every other country importing business into this, goods and products into this country. He's calling other people stupid.
And that's all he does is say a bunch of adjectives.
Yes, and he has no substance. You have people who demand Kamala be more specific about her plans when she's been as specific, probably more specific than a lot of other candidates. Right. Plain and simple.
He won't even make a statement.
He can't.
It's just a bunch of adjectives.
He told you in their debate, he has the concepts of a plan for replacing Obamacare. And at the same time said he was the one that protected Obamacare. Yeah, he protected it because he couldn't replace it with anything worth anything. And let's get it clear. It's not up to him. It's not up to Kamala. It's not up to the vice presidents to actually create the plan. But they're supposed to work with people who know what they're talking about to formulate an actual plan that can be applied and approve it and promote it. He hasn't even done that.
Right. And at least he has experience being the president. So there should at least be a template that he should be referencing about a plan.
So I'm gonna not agree with you on that, because he really wasn't the president. He sat there, he didn't do anything but put his face on camera and make a lot of statements. He never did the hard work. He never burned the midnight oil trying to solve problems. He signed a lot of papers they put in front of him. He put his face in front of the camera. He made grandiose statements, but he never dug into any real substantive issues.
All of that is true, but he was the president.
He was the president. He was the president.
And so my whole point is he should at least have a template, from his advisors, from people that are way smarter than him. He should have a template, since he's demanding that Kamala produce this plan. He can't even reference an old plan.
And to be fair, let's be fair to the man. He does have a template. He has a plan. It's called Project 2025.
That he distances himself from and says that he has nothing to do with it. It's not anything that's affiliated with him.
Even though his vice president wrote the forward for.
Right.
Even though people who were in his administration worked on.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he was all on board for it before it was exposed. Now he has nothing to do with it.
Well, just like he denied all of the accusations and the convictions that has been placed upon him. The truth isn't even in him.
It's not.
He's a narcissist. He's a liar.
Mm-hmm.
Even made the comments that he made about his own daughter were concerning.
So let's talk about that for a quick second. Who looks at their daughter and says, if I had the chance, I would sleep with her? Like, who does that?
What?
You didn't know about that?
No.
Yeah, in an interview before he was running for president on Howard Stern show, he brought her on the show, and she said, so beautiful. Who wouldn't want to sleep with her? If she wasn't my daughter, I would sleep with her.
And fathers don't even imagine their daughters in that way.
Not people who aren't sick.
Right. And they don't go in their imagination about their daughter sleeping with anybody. Now they know that their daughters are adults and they have children and they do adult things, but to say that,
and she was not married at the time, and I don't think she was 21 at the time. Like, she was young. She was like a teenager. Yeah. This is a man who hosted for years the Miss Teen USA
Pageant.
pageant and admitted that he would walk through the dressing room when he knew they were changing, doing costume changes, just so he could do that.
Wow.
But that's fine. I've seen people at his rallies that have women that have T-shirts that say "molest me," Donald Trump molest me.
Wow.
Like they don't
Like,
care.
you know, they are as sick as he is, because when he was in court on trial and sitting in court, pissing and shitting on himself with a diaper on, smelling up the courtroom.
People said the smell coming from him was indescribable. It was
When
like
he had
wet, dirty
followers-
cigars and funk.
He had followers outside with signs that says "Real men wear diapers." Like, it's nothing that he can't do that he won't have support around. Like, you're gonna support somebody that's just shitting on themselves.
But yet you can say Joe Biden is unfit because he's a whole 3 years older than
Right.
Trump.
Right.
Joe Biden had a bad debate performance.
But wait a minute, I'm not a senior just yet, but there are times when I go to speak that I have a bad performance.
It happens
to that
once or twice. It'll happen to me maybe every 6 months. I'll have a bad day and I can't get my stuff together. Even if not, it's not every single time I have to speak. Right. And this is every time this man is giving an interview, open his mouth, he says some shit that is just so outlandish that they had to have his handlers come up with a whole excuse for it. He just does the weave. He goes out on a tangent, and then he brings it all back together again. You know who used to do that? For real, do that? When he was at the height of his comedic success, Bill Cosby used to do that. Bill Cosby would start telling a story, and he would go off on a tangent, but the tangent always came back around to his main point. Mm-hmm. Trump doesn't bring it back together again. He just goes off on that tangent.
He gets lost.
And then next thing you know, we're talking about windmills causing cancer.
Right.
He's talking about water pressure and flushing toilets. When the question give you an example, he had to speak before a group of economic leaders in New York several months ago. And he was asked specifically what would be his plan for taking care of women's health care. And he went on this whole tangent about tariffs and how once he gets these other countries to pay the tariffs, then America will have money unlike they've ever had before.
So doesn't that sound like dementia?
No, it doesn't sound like dementia. It is dementia.
And so remember when he spoke in front of the National Association of Black Journalists?
Yeah, NABJ. I've gone to one of their conventions. It was an amazing thing.
Just very rude and obnoxious, and just acted like a child up there.
Acted like he knew he was better than anybody on the stage or in the audience. Knew it and felt that he did not need to even entertain the thought that what they wanted to say or ask was important.
Right. And his name calling, that is outrageous. And, his childlike behavior, because Kamala made a statement that she worked in McDonald's, all of a sudden he has to have a McDonald's shut down and go and work in McDonald's.
Work at the fry machine for 5 minutes. I'm sorry, 15 minutes. 15. I'm gonna give him credit. 15 whole minutes, and hand out these fries. I know it's tight. They did have an apron on him, but he wore the tie. He had the shirt and tie on. Okay. He had the apron on, and he made fries for 15 minutes, and then he handed them out through the driving window to people who were selected directly to be in that line. Right.
But for what though?
Because to prove a point that he said Kamala Harris never worked at McDonald's. Just because he said off the top of his head she never worked at McDonald's. There's no proof. There's no reason to disbelieve her. And now there's a picture posted of her in her McDonald's uniform when she was a teenager.
Isn't that something? Receipts.
But again,
But
the
how
stupidity of it.
and childlike. How
Yes.
childlike is it to do all of that to try to disprove, which he didn't, because the receipts were produced, like childlike behavior.
The whole birtherism thing with Obama.
Oh my goodness.
Barack Obama was not born in this country. And then when it was produced that the birth certificate was produced, he came out with, well, he was born in Hawaii. Now, last I checked, Hawaii is a part of the United States. It's an actual state.
Mm-hmm.
So not only that, then once he was corrected on that, and everyone was like, well, yeah, he was born in America. He was born in Hawaii. Then his pivot was, well, I don't believe he was ever president of the law school at Columbia.
It goes on and on.
It goes on and on and on. People don't talk about this, but I remember this from years ago. Donald Trump does not believe asbestos is bad. He came out and said he thinks asbestos got a bad rap. It's a perfectly good product and should still be in buildings. You can Google this, you can find this. When I questioned my former classmate, about some of the things she said, and she told me, well, I don't believe it. I said, well, you can just do Wikipedia. You can do Snopes. You can do verifythis.com. She said, well, yeah, like Google is going to tell you the truth. Excuse my French, but bitch, where else are you going to get the information? You just believe what you hear on the stations that you watch and listen to, and that's your source.
Mm.
Their favorite line that irks me the most, the thing they say all the time is, well, I've done the research. That freaking phrase means they went to Fox News' website and typed in some stuff. And it came back with what they wanted to hear. So that's their research. They've done the research. You had Marjorie Taylor Greene in a hearing before Congress with Dr. Fauci, first of all, refused to call the man a doctor, even though he got his medical degree before she was even born.
Right.
Refute the things he was saying because she didn't believe him. When she has no medical training, no medical degree, no advanced degree. You have a person like Lauren Boebert, who's also in Congress from Colorado. This woman is a congressperson who does not have a high school diploma.
Wow.
You know how many black people in Congress are serving in Congress without a high school diploma?
Zero.
Exactly.
Zero.
My litmus test, whenever Donald Trump does something that they think is all great, my litmus test is I just say, well, if it had been Obama, right? They lost their effing minds when the man wore a tan suit. Donald Trump has been lying to them and anyone that'll listen since before day one. He said when he was running, Obama plays too much golf. I will never be playing golf. I'll be working too hard for us to be winning I'll probably never play golf the whole time and then like the next day he went to play golf.
What did he do that recently about some golfer?
So Arnold Palmer is considered one of the greatest golfers of all time.
Right.
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay.
Arnold Palmer, like he was Tiger Woods before Tiger Woods was born.
Right.
Arnold Palmer was the greatest golfer. He won all the tournaments, Masters tournaments. There are tournaments named after Arnold Palmer. There are clubs. There are all kinds of, like you name it, like Arnold Palmer drinks, whatever. Everything's about. Oh, we talk about the Arnold Palmer drink. We're gonna roll back to that real quick. Okay. I'm gonna correct that one. But in telling this, he was in Pennsylvania, where Arnold Palmer was from, and he's telling this story about Arnold Palmer, about how great and powerful of a golfer he was. And then he just slipped into this tangent about Arnold Palmer in the locker room, the clubhouse, after tournaments taking showers and how all the other golfers looked at him naked and said, "Wow, that's a real man. Look at he's like he had a big club." Like and he just went on this whole tangent talking about this for like 15 minutes to the point that the next day Arnold Palmer passed on in like 2009 or something like that. Arnold Palmer's daughter came out and said, "What was that?
Right.
How dare you talk about my father's private parts? Like,
Right.
what is that?"
But who else would do something that idiotic?
And what does it really say? I mean, we live in an enlightened
what
age.
What did we gain from that?
Nothing.
How are we enlightened?
How did that advance this country being any better? Where we stand being any better? This is a man who is so in love with hearing his own voice that he says anything out of his mouth and then he'll find a way to justify it. So let me roll back on the Arnold Palmer drink thing because people need to know this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Baltimore City. I'm from West Baltimore. An Arnold Palmer is half lemonade, half sweet tea. Rock, what do we Baltimoreans call half lemonade, half sweet tea?
A half and half.
Thank you. There it is.
Did you ask me that because I'm a fat boy?
No, because
okay.
You know I'm fatter than you now. But but you're Baltimorean. We call it half and half. The truth of that story is Arnold Palmer was at a golf tournament. I think it was Augusta for the Masters tournament. And back then, during the Masters, all professional golfers have their own caddies, people they pay to carry the bag and help them on the course, pick shots and clubs and all that. They all do that. But there was a time during the Masters, it was the only tournament where you could not use your own caddy. They had black men who worked at the golf course as caddies that you had to use. Now you could choose which caddy you wanted, and you might have had a caddy that was successful for you for years, so you had that same caddy. But Arnold Palmer had a caddy, and when they finished the first 9 holes, the front 9, on a very hot day, Arnold Palmer said, "I'm really thirsty, need something to quench my thirst." And this brother said, "I got something for you," and went behind the bar and gave him a half and half and said, "Try this." Arnold Palmer liked it. He thought it was great.
And they
named it after him. Not the black guy who created it. Well, not even created, who's probably been drinking it his entire life.
I'm inclined to believe some slave or somebody fresh off the plantation, created that.
Just like mac and cheese. Where did mac and cheese come from?
Right.
Mac and cheese was a slave invention on Thomas Jefferson's plantation.
Right. All of that is just part of soul food.
All of it's soul food. But they always appropriate what we do and then make it and put their name on it.
That's a main staple. When we have soul food, you drink iced tea.
Sweet tea.
Right.
Sweet tea.
And we always dressing something up. So we add lemons. What do they say when life gets
sends you lemons, you turn them into lemonade.
Right. So I'm more inclined to think that was our invention.
It is
just like everything else.
It clearly was. It clearly was. I didn't know what an Arnold Palmer was, so I was in my 30s. I was like, this is nothing but a damn half and a half.
Right.
And then it came in a glass, like an 8-ounce glass, and it probably cost me like $12. Like, what the hell? Right. I can go down to Lexington Market and get a 20-ounce half and half for $1. Like, and when it went to
32-ounce for $2.25.
Right, but when it went to $1.25, I was like, what are we doing here now? Like, why? Why all of a sudden there's a half and half, $1.25? Hey. But we can go all day on that and appropriations. We'll do a show on appropriations after this election, especially if somehow or another this MF wins. But we'll segue into something. The main thing I wanted to do tonight's show, and the reason I asked Glenda to be here is we as Black people in this country, Americans, we need to be aware of rights that we have that we don't know we have. Right. We have to be cognizant of what is really going on around us and be aware that there are people who don't want us to have the same rights that they have. And one of the rights that they stand for, stand on, fight for, will claim they'll die for, is the right to bear arms.
And really, that's how we got here. That's essentially how we got here, and because we were out, the weapons that were utilized to force us into servitude was just something unlike we had ever seen before on the African continent.
So let me roll you back a little bit before that part happened, because that part definitely did happen. Before that part happened, we need to recognize that all tribes and nations in Africa were not holding hands and singing kumbaya with each other. Nations warred against nations. Right. There were no boundaries. There were Zulu nation and Swahili nation and whatever other African nations there were, and they went to war with each other. And if nation Glenda conquered nation Yale, then Yale's people became slaves to Glenda's people for one season or one entire year, which they didn't call years, but the actual calendar year from when crops are planted to when crops are harvested. For that year, you were a slave. I was a slave to Glenda. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that year, I was sent on my way again. Now, I might get conquered by Glenda 2 years later to do the whole thing. Or Glenda might slip up and I catch her slipping and she got to be my slave for a year. But that's what they did. People were not enslaved for the entirety of their lives. Right. So when the Dutch and the French and the English and the Spanish got to Africa and saw this, they said, well, we need some of these slaves. And they traded conquering nations, tribes, goods. Some of the goods were usable, some of the goods were not, but they were things that these countries, these nations in Africa wanted for people. And those African tribes that traded people with these Europeans initially had no idea these people would never come back to their land. Right. They thought, yeah, okay, you want these 10 people? Here you go. I'll give you this 10 people for gold. Right. And then they realized, well, they really wanted gold. So they would go out and they would capture people. It wouldn't be about war. They would capture people and send them off to slavery for what they thought would be a year. They had no idea these people would be put on boats and never come back to their lands. And as time went on and it became more of an industry, then some of the things that were traded were guns. Guns were given to conquering African tribes to go out and just steal people. And by then, there was an idea that these people wouldn't be coming back. But this made Glenda's tribe stronger because she had guns and more powerful and more feared. And then over a period of years, decades, centuries, the Europeans decided, why should I give Glenda's people guns? I'm just going to take Glenda's people because I have cannons. Right. And I have not only guns, I have ammunition for these guns.
Weapons of mass destruction.
At that time. So then it became just a friggin'
hostile takeover,
and just a manufacturing situation where we need these people. We make money off of selling people to Europe and the new Americas, and we're not bargaining anything. Profit is profit. If I don't have to give you gold to get a slave, all I got to do is take you and then I can sell you for money. That's what I'm going to do. And that's what they would do. So initially it started out as, yeah, like it was just something they did. Just like the native peoples in this country. The native peoples in America, and this is a fact, a lot of people don't know. I just learned this maybe 10 years ago, if not less. When you think of tribes in the United States, I don't even call them Indians anymore because they're not Indians. They're native peoples. You think of native peoples tribes, you think of the Apache, the Arapaho, the Sioux, the Cherokee, right? Did you know that those people, those tribes didn't call themselves that? If you if you were a Sioux Indian, you didn't refer to yourself as a Sioux Indian. A Cherokee called you a Sioux because that was in their language, that was an insult.
Mm-hmm.
The Blackfeet, the Crows, those were all insult words that other nations, tribes called each other initially. So then it was no pride associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like when I say, Rock's light-skinned, he's a light-skinned black man.
Mm-hmm.
He's a tribe of the light-skinned. He's not walking around talking about I'm the light-skinned. Like that's right. An insult, right?
He knows it.
He knows it. He knows he's, inferior to us. Right? But that's how that started. And then they to identify who they were, like we're called the Blackfoot, so we're Blackfoot people. But they all had their own traditions, their own way of doing things. And just like what happened in Africa, those people were exploited. Their land was taken from them, initially traded for with them. And those people thought, you want to give me a bunch of beads for the land? The land doesn't belong to me. But yeah, go ahead, take the land, whatever. And then they realized what was happening to them, but it was too late.
Mm-hmm.
I created and posted a meme today, and it posted on Facebook today, and it said Halloween and Thanksgiving, right? One of these holidays is about horror and scaring people and bad people doing evil things to good people.
Mm-hmm.
And the other holiday is Halloween. Because Thanksgiving is a celebration of how white people came to this country and made friends with the native people, and they ended up raping, killing, pillaging, taking the land from people, giving them diseases, trying to make them something other than they want, and just took this country. We celebrate it, and the myth that we've been taught all our lives is that, the white people were in bad shape and the native peoples came and they helped them out, and they all joined hands and had a great feast, and everybody became friends, and then jumped to the Wild Wild West. Well, hello. There's a lot of time in between that. And the Wild Wild West is called the Wild Wild West because those people in the Great Plains, those native people in the Midwest, they bucked, they fought back, and the American troops came through and tried their best to wipe those people out. The Battle of 4th of July, 1876, we know as the Battle of Little Bighorn, the massacre at Little Bighorn, because diverse groups, tribes of native peoples fought back against General Custer and wiped his ass out, his troops out, fought back. What people don't know was a year before, in that same general vicinity, United States cavalry troops came through and massacred hundreds of native people, drove them off their land, shot babies, drowned pregnant women, wiped them out, burned them off of their land. But we don't talk about that because it doesn't make a white man a hero. Mm-hmm. But George Custer, who up until that time was considered not a good cavalry officer, pretty much put out where he was because no one wanted to deal with him. He was given command because of the years he had in service and his connections and his charisma back in Washington. He was put out there to get him away from the rest of the army. the real standing army. And he tried to corral thousands of native people who said they weren't going to go on the reservation. And he took a small group of cavalry, and though he had negotiated with the leaders of this gathering, and they told him, "We're not going back, and we will fight you," he still decided to attack them.
Mm.
And one of the survivors of that battle, one of the native people survivors of that battle, is documented as saying, when he died, we took knives and poked his ears, stabbed him in his ears, because he clearly didn't know how to listen.
Mm.
So we made him hear us.
Wow.
Now, to me, that's a great thing. That's a great thing, because you go and push people so far.
Right.
And, that was, to me, one of the original, FAFOs.
Right.
But yeah, we got on a tangent. I just did a weave, right?
You did a Trump.
I did a Trump weave. But
so you were talking about the ability to bear arms.
Yes.
So you were
so white people, MAGA people, Second Amendment people tell us that it's Americans' right to bear arms. And when they say that, they mean white people's right to bear arms. So there are people walking around who either legally or illegally are carrying handguns on them at any given time. And they feel like it's a right. They should not have to go through any process. They feel like it's their God-given right as Americans to carry weapons wherever they go and pull and use those weapons on anybody in any circumstance. Now, that's not every white person. There's no monolithic, everybody is, good or bad. There are different flavors to that. But we as Black people line up and say, we got to get rid of all guns. And that, I don't fight against that. I don't have a problem with that. But it's never going to happen. Just like they're not going to round up and get rid of all the immigrants. There always are going to be guns in this country. Right. And as Black people, you should exercise that same right and learn how to handle a handgun and a rifle or any firearm to protect yourself. They will arm themselves with AR-15s and rocket launchers and flamethrowers and what are they called? Bump stocks and automatic weapons and dual triggers. And there are people out there that are armed better than some emerging nations. Like it's crazy. There are people who have hundreds and hundreds of weapons, but they don't want us to have them. But you have every right to avail yourself of the same things they do. And here in Maryland, now, in order to purchase a weapon, a firearm, you need to take a course. And that course may cost you $150.
Or $3.
The HQL, if you pay more for a you pay more than you pay $300 for a handgun qualification license, HQL. You go shopping somewhere else, because it's really like, I take that back. You might right. So you pay the instructor, whatever, but the state of Maryland is like $120 for the certification, but you got to get training. So you pay the fee, you pay your licensing fee for the training, you pay for your training, you get your licensing fee. But you take this course, you pass this course, you are now qualified in the state of Maryland to purchase a handgun. Do that. Everybody should do that. I don't care if you're pro-gun, anti-gun, don't know. If you can do that, because these people are doing it. And there are, I'll swing in there a little bit. There are criminals that have illegal handguns.
Mm-hmm.
I had a conversation with someone one day who was aghast that I said I wanted to get my concealed carry license. And they said, for what? Why would you need that? I said, because there are a lot of carjackings going on right now. And people are carjacking. They don't care. You got young people, old people. The people are like, they don't value my life and they don't value their life. So I'm getting a handgun qualification. I mean, a concealed carry license. And they said, well, so you're trying to tell me that if someone carjacks you and they're like 15 years old, you're just going to shoot them?
Nobody's going to ask you. I mean, nobody's going to pull out any IDs.
I'm not going to ask for ID.
Right.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. You want to take my? How old are you, young man?
Right.
You put that gun.
Click clack.
Are you old enough to?
Right.
Are you even old enough to drive?
I have a problem when people question grown people about the choices that they make.
That
I just, at that point, I really have a problem. And it may not be their choice, but why question me, or degrade me for the choices that I see fit to make in my life? That
as an adult.
Right. That bothers me. I'm okay if you don't want a gun. I'm going to get one.
Not only am I going to get one, I'm going to get one.
No, I'm going to get another one.
I'm going to get, I'll get more than one. But I'm going to avail myself of the right to carry my gun.
Right.
Because, again, that same scenario. And let me be clear. There's the belief, and I know there's a lot of MAGA people, and I'm just going to say it, a lot of white people who have these guns, and they put in their whole their whole pronunciations of it takes a good person with a gun to stop a bad person with a gun, right? And they're running around.
Split second to make a decision.
You got a split second, but more than that, they feel like if I'm in a store, if I'm in the mall, and Joe Blow pulls out a gun and starts shooting, then it's my right to pull out a gun and shoot back. First of all, that ain't the reason I got a gun. I'm not trying to be captain. I want to be a cop. Right? If I'm in the mall and someone starts shooting, I'm leaving. I'm leaving the mall. If I got my gun on me or not, I'm leaving the mall. They have people who are hired to put their lives on the line to take care of that. Now, if that person with a gun is between me and the exit, or aiming that weapon at someone I care about or love,
right,
and or rock, then I got to make a decision. If you aim your weapon at me and I have a weapon, I fully intend on going home that night.
Right. And a part of the training dictates that if you pull it out, you better use it.
Better be prepared to use it. You can't just pull it out.
Charged.
You just can't pull it out. And also in the state of Maryland, this varies from state to state. People don't understand this. This varies from state to state. But in the state of Maryland, you have a right to, not a right, you have an obligation to de-escalate and to leave.
Right.
So if we walk out of this building and someone pulls a gun, now I'll roll back, wants to have an argument, wants to fight, wants to yell, wants to call me all kinds of names, call you all kinds of names. If I can get in my car, you can get in your car and leave. That's what we're obligated to do.
Mm-hmm.
If someone pulls out a gun and confronts you and you have a gun, you have every right, if you have a carry license and a handgun qualification. Well, first of all, you can't get the carry unless you get the HQL. You have every right to then defend yourself.
That's right.
However, there's no Good Samaritan law that says if I walk outside and see someone beating up someone down the street, that I should grab my gun out of my holster and intercede in that situation. That ain't what you carry a gun for.
Right.
That is not what I'm trying to do. And that's not what anybody should try to do. However, it just like Kamala Harris said, I've been saying it for years. You come in my house and you don't have a key, you're not paying rent, and you weren't invited, I'm going to shoot you.
That's right.
Not only am I going to shoot you, I'm going to shoot you like Arnold Schwarzenegger did in Terminator when he was looking for Sarah Connor. Like there will be no miracle surgery bringing your ass back, right? Because if you remember that scene, this lady, he was looking for Sarah Connor. He knocked on this other lady's house. She answered the door. He said, and he was the Terminator. He said, Sarah Connor? And she said, why, yes. He pulls out a handgun that looks like a Corvette, and he shoots her like 9 times. There is no miracle surgery. You come in my house, you best be prepared that you ain't coming out.
That's right.
And I'd stand on that. If I'm somewhere and someone grabs my son and tries to do him harm, best believe if I'm there, that my son's going to be okay if I can help it. Now, again, it's not up to me to protect you because you're not my woman. Right. It's not up to me to protect Rock because he's light-skinned. Right. However, if you, 3 of us are together and someone pulls out a gun and threatens you, Rock, or me, they're going to get the business. Right.
The mere fact that they pull out a gun because the gun is, they don't have any direction of where the bullet is going to go. So there's a threat. All of us are under the same threat.
And I'm going to make sure, again, I'm going to make sure I go home. I'm going to make sure that my people who are with me are okay. I learned a long time ago from a very good friend of mine who said, it is better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Right? I had a police officer tell me one time when I scared someone away who was trying to break into my house. It was a weird situation. I don't know why this person didn't think I was home, but I was literally stepping in the shower and I heard them banging on my door to try to break into my house in the back of my house.
Wow.
Now, I was at your house Saturday. My house is not laid out like yours, but similar because houses built in Baltimore and across this country, a certain time period, older houses, the kitchen is in the back, right? Backyard. So my kitchen leads to my back door. My bathroom is further back in the house next to my bedroom. So when I go take a shower, then people who think there's too much information, I'm sorry. But when I go to take a shower, I get naked and I go in the bathroom and get in the shower. I'm getting ready to step in the shower and I hear this fool banging on my door. I had just recently gotten a shotgun.
Wow.
I did not have any ammunition for my shotgun, but I had a shotgun. And I heard this fool banging on my door. And it caught me off guard because you just don't end up at my back door. It's not like you just happenstancely end up in my back door. So I yelled out, "What the hell?" And this person, it caught him off guard that someone was there, but it didn't catch him off guard enough that they were going to run. This fool said, "Yeah, is Joanne there?" or whatever name. I said, "No, ain't no Joanne here." "Are you sure?" I said, "You know what? You're right. Joanne is here. Hold on a second." And I reached in the closet and grabbed that shotgun, and I'm butt naked as a jaybird. I came around the corner where he couldn't really see me, but he could know that I was there, and I cocked that sucker. And if you ever had a shotgun, heard a shotgun chambered, he knew. He said, "Wrong house," and ran. And you have to come up a bunch of stairs to get to my back door. I heard.
So needless to say, the shotgun named Joanne.
So, but then I called the police because I got a chance to see him. Right. I called the cops and they came and the officer was questioning me. He was getting the description of the guy. And he said, because he didn't know I didn't have any ammunition. The cop said, if he'd come in, you had every right to shoot him. I said, "Yeah, I know goddamn well, I didn't want to say I didn't have any ammunition, right?" But he said, "But let me tell you something. If that had happened, you make sure every part of him is in the house before you call the police. Because if any part of him is outside,
like he is trying to
leave, retreat, then you can be in trouble. So bring him in, call 911, because it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And I said, "God damn right." So again, find yourself people in Maryland, and in whatever state you live in, Black people, find the laws that govern your ability to have a gun in this country and get the training, get the proper training, read the laws, qualify, and get your handgun license, your handgun qualification license, if your state requires it. States like Florida don't require it. You can you live in Florida and go to a gun store and say, I need a handgun, and they can sell you the handgun right then and there if you're over 21. In Texas, you just have to be 18. You can get whatever you want that day when you turn 18.
Really?
Yes, that's why the kid shot up the school in Texas, and it's so bad that I forget the names of the schools now. Uvalde in Texas. This kid on his 18th birthday walked into a gun store and said, I want to buy 2 AR-15s. And they sold it to him for cash, and he bought ammunition. And then he went back to his high school and he shot up the school, Uvalde, Texas. Because you only have to be 18. In Maryland, there is a 7-day waiting period.
Mm-hmm.
You fill out your paperwork, it gets sent to the state police, and then once the paperwork comes back, then they send you a letter. The letter will say something to the effect of, you have not been disallowed to buy a gun. Like what the hell is it? Why can't you say you've been approved? You have not been disapproved. That says you have not been disapproved.
Right.
And every time I purchase a weapon, and every time I get that email, I get that same feeling in the pit of my stomach when I read it. You have not been, like, here we go, like, not been disapproved. But then you get that weapon. But in the time period from the time you fill out, before you fill out the paperwork, now you have to go and find a course for your handgun qualification license. You've got to pass it. You got to pass the course. You got to pay the fee, and then you can go purchase your handgun, and you wait the 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people find it restrictive. To me, it's just that when I buy something, I want it thing within me, but I have no problem waiting 7 days.
Right.
Maryland does it because they don't want anybody to get all worked up,
Mm-hmm.
go to a store, buy a gun, and go kill somebody,
right,
or attack somebody, or whatever. There's that 7-day cooling off period.
Okay.
And Maryland has been very good at making it 7 days, because there used to be a time back when I purchased my first handgun, there was a time that they said it'll be 2 weeks and you'll get a letter in the mail. This is way back before there was the interwebs. You'll get a letter in the mail within 2 weeks, and they'll let you know. And that 2 weeks could be a month, because they didn't have computers back then, and it was just a few ladies over here at the Woodlawn State Police Barracks who did all that paperwork and went through all that paperwork. But now it's 7 days. You go get your handgun qualification license. You go to a reputable gun store. You make your purchase. You learn, and then once you get that gun, once you get that firearm, go learn how to use it. Go to a range, find an instructor, learn how to use your weapon, and learn all the safety things you need to learn about that weapon, because there's nothing worse than to have a weapon, have purchased a weapon, have done everything right, and the situation break out and you don't know how to use it to protect yourself.
Right. Well, I'm going to the range this weekend because I purchased a firearm and have not used it. I mean, fired it yet. So
You got to punch holes in paper.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You buy a car, you want to drive it.
Exactly.
Right? You buy groceries, you want to cook them. You got to learn how to do what you have in your possession, because it is a very dangerous piece of metal,
mm-hmm.
or piece of machinery. So learn how to use it, learn how to use it correctly, learn how to use it accurately, because you don't want to be that person that is taking fire and returning fire with your hand up like this, and
I want to hit my target.
I want to hit the target I'm aiming for.
That's right. And there's been a few times when I've heard some stuff going on in my yard, and my lights come on, meaning something
is
triggered.
coming.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm ready. I'm ready.
And I'm gonna tell you, so people who listen to the show, people who know me, know that I cook I smoke meats.
And you shoot.
Now they know I shoot, right? But when I'm doing, let's say briskets take 10 to 12 hours to cook. And my smokers are in my backyard. So 10 hours, whether I start early in the morning or start later in the afternoon or early evening, I know I got a 10 to 12 hour commitment of tending to the smoker. I don't lift it up for briskets because you don't do that, but checking the temperature of the smoker. If I need to add fuel to it, I'll do that. And that requires going out in the backyard in the middle of the night and tending to it and whatever, tending to the fire. It could be 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And even before I got my handgun, my concealed carry license, I have the right to have my handgun on me in my own property or on my own property, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I usually have something on me when I'm going up there in the middle of the night to work on this stuff. And one night, because it always happens, again, as I told you earlier, I know my luck. One night, one evening, it was late, it was cold. I was smoking these briskets, and I just come downstairs to tend the fire. And when I walked out in the backyard, I left my weapon on the kitchen table. And I go out in the backyard and I check the fuel. I mean, check the fire pit. I throw some wood into the fire pit, close it, and it's all on camera. And I think I still have the video on my phone. I'll show it to you after the show. While I'm tending the fire with my back to the alley, this large dog runs behind me down the alley. I never saw him. I put the fuel in, like I said, I closed the door on the smoker. I'm walking back to my house, and the dog had come around my driveway and garage and charging me.
Oh my God.
And this is a large German Shepherd looking like dog.
Wow.
And it caught me off guard so much that I reached for my weapon and I did not have it on me. And I don't know now we're talking a year or so later. I don't know if the dog was just curious or friendly or just wanted
had
to
a gun pulled out on him before.
But no, I don't know. I don't know if he was coming at me like, hey, or
Right.
hey, because I in my mind I still hear and see him growling at me. I don't know. But I happen to have the poker I used to jab, to stoke the fire. And I had that on my hand, and when he charged me, I started banging on the smoker and screaming at him, and he stopped. And then he backed up and went away. Then he came back again. I was like, hey, I ain't playing. And he left. And I went in the house. I'm like, because I don't have my weapon on me. This is when that shit happens.
Yeah.
Right? So it didn't have to be a dog. It could have been somebody in the yard coming through the alley. But there's like I had no idea. The work on my smoker to add fuel to the smoker. My back is to the alley.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been anybody, but you have a right to protect your home, your property, and yourself on your property in your home.
That's right.
And had I had something on my hip, Fido would have been taken away by, animal services that night or the next day. But this dog, I'm 5'6.5". I weigh too much, but this dog was every bit of at least 120 pounds. And I have not seen the dog since, and I never saw him before. So I don't know where he came from, but he would have been dropped dog dead in my yard that night. So, and like I said, I've been to your house, Glenda. You got some dark spots.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to give away anything about your house, but unless you look like rock, black people can hide in your yard.
Well, ironically, that my handyman was supposed to install these bright lights that I purchased.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a community meeting and somebody came and did a presentation and he told us about these lights that were really good for the property. Now I have motion lights in certain spaces around my yard, but those dark spots where you couldn't even see the end of my yard,
Mm-hmm.
that's what will be illuminated through these lights, but he'll be there to install them tomorrow.
You got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it.
I got a camera that's going up that my good friend over here, Rock, told me about this camera system, and it came 4 in a pack, and I ordered an extra one so that I can have some surveillance around my garage.
Yeah, I have it.
That we got this neighbor who keeps walking his dog, and I keep catching the dog on camera on my property, and then I go out there, and then he leaves a pile. And so last week, the dog, made his delivery, and we returned the package.
Yes, what you do.
I got my friend to return the package, and then I talked to this neighbor, and I'm like, "You're gonna have to stop your dog from coming on my property." He said he's gonna look into it.
No, you don't look into it.
We already looked into it because the pile is right there.
Right there.
I'm like, okay, sir.
I look at it like this. Look at it like this. And my system, after that, I found out my system has a setting where it can say, "Hi, you are now being recorded." So the dog wouldn't know,
right?
But any person that comes on my property, my backyard, comes in my backyard, they are told they are being recorded. If they want to stay, that's on them. But you come into my yard with intent to do anything, you're being told you're going to be recorded. You're being recorded, so you can break in if you want. You can come in that door if you want.
And see, this is why it's important to have a firearm, because these fools are walking around with masks on, and so you really can't even get a description. And so they're that brazen that they will see cameras and still proceed. That's why you have to get a firearm. Because if you want to, if you're going to proceed, you better do it with caution. I don't, my cameras don't talk, but I get an alert on my phone every time the movement happens at those 4 points. And I get ready every time. Every time alert comes, it's like, okay.
What we're going to
do? It's a dog.
Right. Right. And if I'm home and mine does it,
got one.
and I'm told, and same thing on my phone, it'll tell me a person's been detected in your yard.
Right.
I'm definitely looking it up.
Right.
Now sometimes a person ends up being a stray cat. But if it's a person and they hear that, and I'm gonna tell y'all something else too. I don't tell a lot of people this. Before I set it for talking, my camera picked up someone in the alley near my property. They hadn't actually gotten to my yard yet, but they were beside my driveway. And they had a handgun. You can see it, and they're aiming it up in the air. And then he walks away. Now, I don't know what that fool was thinking, what he was doing. But a shot could have come through my window. And then even if he didn't hit me, I had the video evidence to show the police. And I did call the police after I saw the video. And they went and found the guy and locked him up. Because stupid is as stupid does. Apparently, when they went looking, they found him based upon what they saw in the video, and this knucklehead still had the gun on him. So, but it's stuff like that. When I think about it, when I go out to cook these meats that Rock keeps bothering me about, because he knows how good my food is, and his assistant, the Mighty Morphin Midget Ranger, who they both like my ribs.
She only liked it
with sauce on it. I get, I don't understand that, but that's okay. That's that's a preference. But we as Black people in this country, be anti-gun, be cautious of the guns, but arm yourself to protect yourself. Get your carry license if you feel it's necessary, but don't spend the money for a carry license if you have no intentions of carrying your weapon outside of your house or off your property. But get the handgun qualification license if you can, and get yourself a weapon, because there are people, not just the people that Glenda and I are just talking about, but there are people in this country who wear red hats with white lettering, and they don't want you to have it. And the main reason I'm definitely having it is because they don't want me to have it. And why don't they want me to have it? I'm definitely going to have it. So though I have no fear that anyone's going to come down my street in West Baltimore where I live with that MAGA mess. FAFO if you want to.
Right.
So the MAGA people or the MAGA supporters don't want. I thought they was for gun laws.
For them.
Okay.
Oh, no, they're not for gun laws. They're for free guns for everybody. For them. They don't want gun laws. They think gun laws are stupid.
Yeah, they think mentally ill people should have a gun.
No, they say only mentally ill people. And every time someone shoots up a school or a mall or a movie theater, they say, "Oh, that person was crazy."
Right. But they want everybody to
Have a gun.
But you want to know something, man, and what they not looking at, and I get it. If we was to have some issues today or tomorrow, and they wanted to go at it with Pookie and Ray Ray wasn't worried about no gun laws.
They ain't worried about no gun laws. But they ain't messing with Pookie and Ray Ray.
They know better.
They know better. They want to people, they want to cut you off on the highway, jump out their car, and pull out their shit, and you be unarmed so they can say, I felt threatened, so that's why I fired off my entire clip at this black person who I cut off and flipped the bird to and jumped out my car. You know, they want the same situation that fool George Zimmerman did to Tavon Martin. I have a gun, so I have a right to defend myself and use it on this person whom I attacked.
Right. Whom the police told.
Leave alone.
Right.
Let us handle it. Stop pursuing this person.
Yep.
The 3 men in Georgia who chased the black man down because he happened to be jogging through their neighborhood and chased him down in a pickup truck, and then shotgunned him to death. Mm. They don't want us in those situations to be able to shoot back. Arm yourselves. Be ready. Don't go looking for trouble. Just be prepared when it shows up.
Absolutely. Because
especially if this fool wins. And I'm going to tell you something else. If we get off the air with this, trust and believe. When he loses, the prices of guns are going to go up and ammunition is going to be hard to find again, because the gun companies push a narrative that, oh, whenever there's a Democrat in office, oh, he's going to come for your guns. He's going to come for your ammo. And they buy all they can get. And they don't want us to be one of the ones that are armed. But there's never been a president in this United States that has said, I'm going to take all their guns. They've all said something to the effect, but none of them have ever done anything about it, really. When Joe Biden was in the Senate, he sponsored a anti-assault weapons bill that made it harder for people to get submachine guns and automatic weapons. But no one has ever sent anyone to anyone's house to take their weapons that wasn't a threat to the government or the safety of others. Mm. Ain't nobody coming to take your guns. But if they did, I don't care if you are the guy that has 200 guns and a flamethrower and a grenade launcher and a bazooka in your house, the people they send to take the guns from you will be much more armed than you are. The people in Waco, Texas, we can have a show about that and what really happened down there. And those people, in my opinion, should have been left alone. However, when push came to shove and the government agents decided enough was enough, they were going in there. They had tanks. You don't have a tank. You can think you can shoot it out with the government if you want to. You don't have a tank. You can't. So please stop with the bullshit. But black people, arm yourselves. So I'm going to say that, look, it's way past my time, but I started a little late because of what I had going on. And Glenda, thank you once again for being on the show. Anytime. Thank you, Rock, for doing, what you do back there, that whole mystery to me, because you push buttons and slide knobs and you do things, and things are just like, you have skill sets that I am in awe of, my man. But Nitelifer, Circle of Sanity, every Wednesday night, 7:30 to 9-ish. WMEG Radio.
The Nitelifer, the Night Circle of Sanity, radio show.
What you got? What you got?
I'm going back to eat my chips. Black man hungry, y'all.
The Nitelifer, the Night Circle.
Y'all watching on Rock Make Nation. Ain't she pretty?
Yeah, I call Fongo mom. Fongo wife.
You want answers? You want answers? You want
No, he's
answers?
not the nigga, but
I want the truth.
he get us up there.
You can't handle the truth. Feel the truth.
You got security coming too.
The Night Circle of Sanity, radio show.
Yeah, I was working.
So we do